Board. Welcome to the September 14th, 2021 meeting. First of all, I'd like to welcome back Josh Morris from the staff. Josh had a well-deserved break, and now he's back representing the Planning Division. If I can, I just want to do a roll call of the members. Jim Sears.
Here. Congratulations, Josh.
Peg Zielinski's having some technical difficulties, but she will be joining the meeting. Lou George.
Yes, here.
Tori Adler.
I'm here.
And we are going to get a new, just for the record, we are going to have a new associate member, Jean Hartnett. Jean is not available right now, but hopefully she'll be able to join, and we can formally welcome her to the board. Tonight's meeting is convening remotely via the Teams app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials that have been provided to the members of this body will be shown during this transmission. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. A few business ground rules. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called further. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage with each other, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, we have established an email address for public comment, publiccomments@danversmass.gov. This email address is shown online with the streaming of this meeting. Residents may email comments, and they will be read out loud after the staff has confirmed their name and address. All emails must contain the date and phrase planning board meeting in the subject line. Finally, each vote taken this evening will be conducted by a roll call vote. So the first agenda item is 3133 Fellow Street, requested by Gardner Trask and Carol Shoka for endorsement of an approval not required plan for 3133 Fellow Street, assessors map number 035, lot number 023 and 024. The property is located in the R2 zoning district. So I'll turn it over to you, Gardner, I believe, who will be speaking on this request.
Thank you. John, just really quick before we jump in, Jean was able to join us. So Jean Hartnett is on the call.
Jean,
Hi.
welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you live someday, hopefully in the near future. So we appreciate your service to the board.
Yep.
Gardner, go right ahead.
Thank you. So the Trask family and the Soika families have lived on Lindell Hill since the 50s. I live in the house my grandfather had built. Carol Soika lives in the house her parents had purchased. And you will have, I sent some information, some background information, deeds originally going back to the early 50s. On June 11th, 1974, the town took by eminent domain an easement and paper road to extend Richard Street. It goes from the Richard Street extension across through several properties and through our property, splitting what was our property and taking away portions of the property. There was no money given. It was taken by eminent domain without any purchase. Since then, the family, because it is just a paper road and because it is an easement, the families have continued to maintain the property lines that were original. I mow my side and maintain my lawn, and Carol Soika does her side as well. In 2002, by vote of town meeting, the town has abandoned the easement on this road, on this paper road. It extends not only on our land, but across the street through several other properties to where the road actually is ending in a small cul-de-sac. The intent originally was they thought that they would be going across and potentially into what was then Lipinski Farm, with the thought they may develop it and want to go across the way. So at this point, what we've done is the town took it in 1974. The town abandoned that easement in 2002 by a vote of town meeting. We have gone to Hancock Associates, had them reestablish what our original plot lines prior to the eminent domain would be, and are asking for a request for A&R. By looking at this document, you can see the dotted lines that go on the inside of her garage and close to my garage were the paper road delineations. We're now asking to return it back to the solid line that's almost exactly in between those two lines. We'll each recover 25 feet of the 50 feet, and it will be put back on the tax rolls, and we will start paying taxes, and it will be officially back to the property of the original property lines of the Soikers and the Trasks.
Great. Appreciate the overview. Jim, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. John, this is a common thing up there. I've done it a couple times for clients with that paper street, and I'm glad that Gardner's able to do it on his property with a neighbor. So hopefully eventually that whole easement will be corrected. And basically he owns to the center line of the paper street, as does the other neighbor. But I've done a couple of these up there. I know Gardner's up there also. So I'm all in favor.
Okay, thank you. Lou, questions?
Yeah, I mean, this all seems very detailed. One question I guess I had for Gardner, so the sewer easement that remains, is that correct?
No, all
Okay.
easements were abandoned by the vote of town meeting in March of 2020. There is no sewer, there is no sewer line, there's no sewer easements, and the paper road is now defunct as the town has abandoned all rights and claims to easements.
Got it. Okay, very good. That was the only question I had. I'm in favor of this as well.
Okay. Tori, any questions?
No, I've got no concerns about this.
Okay, great. Jean, welcome again. Do you have any questions?
No, my only question would have been the easement, but that was answered.
Okay, great. Peg hasn't joined, correct, David? I don't see her.
I don't see her yet, yeah.
I don't have any questions either. My questions were answered by prior members. Anyone from the public have a comment or a concern on this application? If not, can we bring it back to the board for a motion to approve the A&R as presented?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lou. All right, I'll do a roll call vote. Tori,
Yes.
Jean?
Can I vote?
Yes. Well, that's a good question. How have we done this, Jim? I apologize. It's been a while since we have an associate member. They can vote on certain matters, but
Just special
welcome your
permits.
Special
input.
permits, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't believe she can vote on this at this point.
So, but Jean, the way we treat the associate, just so you know, we want your input. It may not necessarily have a particular vote until a special permit's required, but we certainly welcome your input. So, okay, so I had a favorable vote by Tori. Jim? Yep, okay. Lou?
Yes.
And the chair's in favor as well. So,
John, it looks like Peg has joined the meeting.
okay, Peg, on the first application of the A&R lot on 3133 Fellows Street, do you have any questions or concerns?
I do not.
Okay, so we were just doing a roll call vote. Are you in favor of this A&R application?
Yes,
Right.
I am.
Right, so all the members are in favor of the application. So can I get a vote to allow Josh or David to sign the A&R plan on behalf of the board?
You want a roll call or you want to?
Well, I just want a motion to allow David or Josh to sign. We've allowed them to sign the A&R plans while we're remote.
I'll make that motion to sign the A&R plan for 3133 Fellow Street.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Okay, that was by Tori. All right, so a roll call vote. Jim? You're on mute, Jim, just so you know, but I think you said you were in favor. Lou?
Yes.
Yes.
Tori?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm in favor as well. So we wish the applicant well.
Thank you. I'll follow up with David Fields, but what is the next step in the process so I can explain it to my neighbor? Is it simply having town register the A&R with the registry of deeds?
David, you want to answer that? Obviously, the plan will be signed off by the planning board, and then I don't know how the recording gets done. Who's
Sure.
responsible for that?
The applicant records it.
Yeah, Gardner, you'd have to follow up with me. I can get you the signed Mylar, and then we'll take that to the registry.
Perfect.
That'll be on you to record, but we can work through that.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, everyone. And actually, of the paper, Jim said he had done others. Of all of the ones that were affected originally, 5 of us have, this makes 5 properties that have reclaimed it through A&R, and there's only 2 left. So this is not, I'm actually at the tail end of the parade on this one. So thank you. I appreciate your time and consideration.
You're welcome. All right, so the next agenda item is 9R Durkee Circle, request by Andrea Boudreau for endorsement of an approval not required plan for 9R Durkee Circle, assessors map and lot number 025009. The property is located in an R3 zoning district. So is the applicant here?
She is here. I'll just share my screen to put the plan up.
Okay.
Yeah, good evening. For the record, my name is John Moran. I work for the Moran Cameron Group. We're here tonight representing Andrea Boudreau on an A&R request for the property located at 9R Durkee Circle, assesses map 25, lot 9. And the plan that you see there on the screen, Ms. Boudreau owns this piece of property. It's approximately 1.72 acres. It has frontage on Maple Street, i.e. Route 62 and Interstate 95. Obviously, there's no access based on the Mass Highway plans off of Interstate 95, and actually where our frontage is located on 62, there's no access there either. However, if you look to the southeast, there's access in an easement that was created way back for access to this property. However, Ms. Boudreau does not want to try to move forward. There's some issues trying to develop that property. You got some wetland issues. So instead of trying to figure a way to get access and develop it, she's actually approached several of her abutters, and several of them are interested in buying a portion of the lot. So in order to do that, we've prepared this A&R plan that actually subdivides this 1.72 acre parcel into 4 parcels shown as parcel A, B, C, and D. There's a note on the left-hand side of the plan that states that parcels A, B, C, and D in and of themselves are not buildable lots. And once the A&R plan is endorsed, if the planning board sees fit to endorse it, she will then approach the abutters about them potentially buying these non-buildable parcels. Pretty basic, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Peg, why don't we start with you on this application?
So parcel A, B, C, and D are not buildable lots. The wetlands?
There's a wetland right out along Route 62.
Okay, see it.
That's not the reason why they're not buildable, though. They're not buildable because once we create them and as they're shown, first of all, parcel A has no frontage, no
I see that,
access. And then parcels B, C, and D, first of all, aren't big enough and they don't have the required frontage. So that's why they're labeled as non-buildable parcels or non-buildable lots.
So she's going to asked her neighbors or has been talking to her neighbors about purchasing these lots?
Correct.
Why would they want to do that?
They're just gonna add them to their lots to make their lots bigger, the abutting lots.
Okay, I have no problem with it.
Jean, do you have any questions?
No, I actually just got these plans this afternoon, so they're fairly new to me, but I don't have any questions right now.
Okay, Tori,
No questions.
Lou?
So I guess, so you're saying, I guess, so looking at parcel A, B, C, and D, as was mentioned, are not buildable. It seems like parcel A is the largest parcel, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, assuming the abutter purchases that property, does that will not affect in terms of their ability to build at all? This is a residence 3 zone, correct?
It's a residence 3 zone exactly. So say, for example, if the people located at 7 Durkee decide that they would like to purchase parcel A, depending on where their structure is, and depending on where wetlands may be on the site, they might have the ability to add an addition onto the structure or expand a yard. That hasn't been looked at, but that's kind of what people are looking at over there. And she has had some interest from some of the abutters, so that's why she decided to move forward.
Okay. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, questions?
I have no questions.
And I don't have any questions either. Is anyone from the public wish to speak on this application? No comments, David or Josh from, okay.
No, I don't see any.
Nope.
So if I can bring it back to the board to approve the application, if we can also include having staff sign off on the A&R if it's approved, I'd appreciate that. So is there a motion to approve this application as presented?
So moved.
Second, is there a second?
Second,
Okay, let's do the roll call vote. Jim,
In favor.
Peg,
in favor?
Lou,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. So, and I believe that motion also included allowing the staff to sign off. Any objections to that?
No.
Okay, hearing none. So good luck to the applicant.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You
Good
too.
night.
So,
Okay, the next agenda item is 100 Independence Way, request for site plan approval submitted by Simon Property Group for property at 100 Independence Way. Assessor map and lot number 063004 pursuant to section 4 of the zoning bylaw. The property is in the commercial 3 zoning district. The applicant proposes a plus or minus 1,800 square foot expansion to the exterior of the property. So I'll turn it over to the applicant if they can introduce themselves. So who's going to speak on behalf of Simon Properties?
Hi, good afternoon, good evening rather. It's Steve Glowacki from RJ O'Connell and Associates. I represent the applicant for in regards to the civil. We prepared the plans with me today on the call. Who's prepared to speak if there are any questions is Timothy Fox from Simon Property Group, and also Jonathan Ekman from Aldi, though I'm not sure he's available to comment. I understand he was on the road. But with that said, you are correct in your presentation. We are looking to expand the building, a very minor expansion to the Liberty Tree Mall in the area of the AC Moore. The project is essentially a renovation of the AC Moore space for an Aldi supermarket located at the south side of the mall, the Liberty Tree Mall. The renovation does include 2 separate additions, one 1,474 square feet on the south side, and then a 354 square feet addition in the loading area. The loading area, I'm not sure if we could pull the plan up. David, would you mind pulling up the C3 plan?
Sure, Steve. Just give me one moment.
Thank you very much. Some of you folks may remember back, we came before you in 2019 for the Goldfish Swim School, which is just opposite of the proposed Aldi. And as a matter of fact, with the delay in COVID, that project was delayed a bit during construction, but is almost complete. So they will share a loading area, so to speak, in that area.
Steve, did you say which sheet again? Sorry.
C3, if you may. Perfect. So as you'll note, I mentioned the expansions to the south of the existing AC Moore space, which is along the front. You'll know it better along the front, the access road, and then also the small triangular expansion, again about 350 square feet or so in the loading area, and that's to facilitate a truck, a semi, to back up into that space and offload merchandise for the proposed Aldi. The proposed addition in the loading area replaces some of the impervious area that's already exists in the loading area today. So there's no net change in that in terms of adding impervious area. However, the expansion in the front of approximately 1,500 square feet or so, 1,400 square feet or so, does displace some open space. So what we had proposed to do, as is shown in the inset up in the top corner of the plan, is remove 12 parking spaces and install a couple of raised islands in those areas. Those would be landscaped, and we also carried a landscape plan in the set which showed what we intend to do in those areas. Overall, as I mentioned, it does displace 12 spaces, but in an analysis of the parking, essentially we currently have 3,933 spaces on site, and with the proposed reduction, we are looking to leave a net total of 3,921 spaces, resulting in an adjustment from a 4.74 ratio to a 4.72. So very, very minor change, still compliant with the regulation, but again, we thought it best to try to balance out the impervious versus pervious so we don't have any net effects on stormwater, more importantly, and also enhance the landscaping as you come into this side of the property into the proposed Aldi. Ultimately, the disturbed area that we're proposing in total is about 12,380 square feet, which is less than the 20,000 square feet that triggers the need for a stormwater report and things like that. However, as I pointed out, the goal of this in our analysis was to ensure that we had no net negative effect on the stormwater by increasing runoff or untreated stormwater or the like. So we had designed the plan to accommodate that. In terms of utilities, the intent is to serve the existing space with the utilities inside the current building. So electric, gas, water supply, and sanitary facilities will also be pulled from the existing space. So there'll be interior workup, but nothing in the site as it stands today. Along the sidewalk areas in the front, we're enhancing the ADA connectivity by putting a new ADA ramp over there, as well as new sidewalks along the way, which will help keep a nice pedestrian connection along the way. In front of the loading area, we intend to demo the existing screen wall, but replace it with a new screen wall. Has a slight angle to it to accommodate truck maneuvers. And last, along the front end of the space, there'll be a couple of areas allocated for cart corrals, for shoppers to take carts and grab merchandise, and then they'll get put back into the space. We did receive some comments last week from Mr. Stephen King, Engineering Department, and we sent back a response memo today. Essentially, everything was really more administrative, for instance, to coordinate the water use mitigation plan with Sharon Clement, and also some other minor details in the plans, which we intend to fully address. And that's essentially what we have. Again, it's a pretty straightforward project, although of course it's part of the mall, so it seems like it may be a larger effort, but it really is very simple when it's broken down. Any questions I can answer?
Yeah, so let me open up to the members. Lou, why don't we start with you?
Okay, sure. Just some questions I have in terms of the, so I know that Aldi is, I'm not overly familiar with Aldi. I know that there is it's my understanding that there is, I think there's an Aldi location in Medford. But can you tell me just a little bit about in terms of the, I assume this is as a typical as a typical supermarket. Is there any other thing that's a little bit different from from what you would imagine at a Stop and Shop or a Market Basket?
From what I understand, and I apologize to Jonathan Ekman, I'm not sure if he's able to speak a little bit more in detail about the space. Oh, I see his light come on. Jonathan, is this something you can check with on?
Steve, yeah, I can jump in for you if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Good evening. Appreciate everybody putting eyes on this project and hearing us and what we're looking to achieve there. Very excited about this opportunity. To speak to who we are and how we operate, we are obviously a bit of a smaller format grocer. Total square footage is plus or minus 20,000 square feet with a sales floor of approximately 12,500 square feet. So definitely a smaller format, 4 to 5 aisle store. No prepared food, so no grease trap, no butcher. We're not preparing meals or anything in-house. Everything comes prepackaged. We're a very clean operator with, we have a single delivery truck coming in overnight, a couple of other outside vendors that'll deliver throughout operating hours. But everything is in-house, maintained. All of our recycling is baled in the back of the room and taken by our truck drivers back to our warehouse and distribution facilities. So, we're excited about our expansion in northern Massachusetts. So if I can answer any more direct questions, I'm open to do that.
What are your typical hours as well? And is there, and it's my understanding, there would not be a beer and wine being sold there as well, is there?
That is correct. In Massachusetts, we do not sell beer or wine in our stores due to our inability to secure a liquor license. And maybe one day, but at the moment, that's not our approach. Typical operating hours are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Although those do fluctuate at times due to the season or needs of the business.
Okay. One question I had with respect to the plan itself, I know that that Mr. Glowacki was just mentioning earlier that in terms of that they would provide some additional landscaping in the area, and I guess the question I have is just in terms of circulation, because it seems that this will have a different, that we are within a, towards a shopping mall where we're replacing what was an AC Moore. It's going to be a different sort of hours, probably a different volume. Have any steps been taken in terms of for pedestrian safety, carts, that sort of thing?
Yeah,
I'll let Steve speak to pedestrian safety. I think carts, Aldi, out of all supermarket operators, does a phenomenal job at managing our carts in the parking field. One of our systems is a quarter for cart system. So all of our carts are tied up against our building and chained together. When you walk up, there's a little clip on the handlebar. You pop in a quarter, the chain pops out. You take that in shopping. You go back, take that to your car to unload your groceries. Bring that back to the front of the store, pop that chain in, you get your quarter back, and that's how the cycle continues. So it keeps the carts from being left in the parking field. All of our landlords appreciate that, and our customers, albeit it's a bit of a learning curve, very much appreciate that process as well. And I'll let Steve speak to customer flow and ADA.
sure. What we did, and in fact, the improvements along this area started with the Goldfish Swim School. We proposed new curb ADA accessible ramps on either side of the loading area, as well as a new crosswalk to be painted in the area. So with this added proposal in the mix, we made a slight modification of those ramps, but we do have ADA compliant ramps. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a new ADA compliant ramp in a wide pedestrian crossing painted out, as well as signage on either side along the front of the store, so that shoppers coming from the main parking lot, will have a safe place to cross and make it to the front entrance, which sits at the corner of the building, the proposed building. So we anticipate a safer experience for all that are going to be shopping in the area.
Okay. And just turning in terms of in terms of engineering comments, were there any outstanding issues? I know you addressed a number of things, including dumpster locations and such.
Yeah, the only thing outstanding, I'd like to speak to Mr. King about this, is the need for potentially for a stormwater management permit. We had a similar situation when we were working on a different project for Costco, just to understanding if we actually needed one. We certainly don't object to it if we need it. I'm just not certain we fall beyond that threshold. But we have no problem whatsoever coordinating with Mr. King. We have in the past on past projects, and certainly if it's needed, we're happy to oblige.
Okay, that's good. Okay, Mr. Chair, I don't have any further questions.
Okay, Tori, you're next.
Well, I think Lou covered all the questions I had. It seems like it'll be a nice addition to things at the mall.
Okay, Jim?
I would agree with Corey. I don't have any further questions at this time. I think it would be a great addition to the mall. We need some more activity over there, so I look forward to it.
Okay, great. Jean, questions?
I only have one question as far as pedestrian safety. I know the Target over there added stops in front of where the crosswalks are to go into the store. I don't think you would need one in the eastbound direction because there's already a stop at that corner, but would you be open to adding one at a later date if it was necessary?
Yeah, I mean, Tim Fox is here on the call as well, but I'm sure I can speak for Simon to say that any issues of safety or anything of the like are always top priority to be addressed. So if there was something that was outstanding or seemed to be an issue, I would guarantee Simon would take care of, perhaps an installation of a sign or the like. But, we anticipate with the signage that's proposed, we shouldn't have those issues. But, Tim, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but,
No, I mean, safety is our, number one concern, and making sure that, customers and employees are safe. So of course, if there's any issue, would be happy to address that.
Thank you.
Peg?
I like the additional landscaping they're putting in. And I also think that the store will generate some activity that we need over on that side. Mall is kind of quiet most of the time. So I think this is something that will be positive for the mall. Is there access to the mall? I was trying to look at my plans through the mall. Is all access from the outside? All access from the outside, okay.
Yes, the access is from the exterior, not within the mall.
Well, I think this is a good project.
Okay, my only question really is, since we have Simon Properties here, is to understand, there was some concerns about access and potholes a few years ago. I know it's been corrected, but is there a capital improvement plan for infrastructure for the roads and the parking lots? That's, obviously there's a lot of traffic, a lot of people go into the mall, but can you comment on what the plans are around parking lot maintenance and access road?
Yeah, I mean, we have, a capital budget for any sort of expense and any type of maintenance requirements, such as, parking lot improvements. Specifically, I work in a development group, so not in our property management group. So I can't talk about any specific projects that are planned for the immediate future. But that's quite important to us to, again, maintain our customer satisfaction and as well as our tenant satisfaction.
I mean, I don't know if you're aware of it, but there was some issues trying to get into the mall's property with some pretty significant potholes leading in there. So, I understand people who felt that that's been corrected, but it's a big nuisance to people going in if it's not maintained. So I just want to put that on.
Yeah. If there are any concerns that feel that people feel that haven't been addressed, pass them along, and we will do so.
Okay. Anyone from the public that would like to speak on this?
Yeah, Matthew Duggan.
Go ahead, Mr. Duggan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's Matthew Duggan, Selectman. If we could talk a little bit about the expansion again on the exterior, not the loading dock, but at the entrance to the store where on the plan, it showed a number of stripes indicating the crosswalk. Today, to the best of my recollection, there's 3 or 4 trees and some mulch. Are those that's being removed? The store is extending out to the sidewalk? Is that what the plan is?
That's correct. Some portions of that will be removed. We are enhancing the landscaping in other areas around the front of the building. We do have a landscape plan as part of the package. I believe it's L1 in the set. But as I mentioned, in an effort to offset that, we thought it important to add some additional landscaping out in some of the, what I'll refer to as a sea of pavement in some of the parking areas. So we added additional areas out there. But you are correct. Some of the overgrown trees in the front, by necessity, will have to be removed for that to facilitate that expansion. But the intent is to replace that in and around the loading area and beef it up in the areas available.
All right. Well, that's unfortunate that those trees have to be removed. And I think I heard several comments saying that there's landscaping being added. What you're doing is you're just moving the location of the pervious surface to another area. And it sounds like it's a considerable distance away from this main building. It sounds like it's out on the ring road.
That's a correct assessment, Mr. Duggan. That's correct.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess some landscaping is better than none. I'm not sure what the requirements are for this site in terms of percentage of landscaping. It doesn't seem to, if there is some, it doesn't be met. And then just one other comment about the potholes. So that's just a reoccurring issue year over year. And so when I hear someone say safety is our paramount objective, that's kind of a disingenuous comment. These potholes are not just simple divots; they're considerable depth, and so there's usually a series of them in a location. So you have motorists literally swerving. Some patrons to that site, they're very familiar with them. Other folks are not expecting to see those types of holes. So I would hope, I would ask that there be a condition for this, that potholes be addressed early on in the spring and not left to fester. I know in May on Federal Street, there was a hole. It must have been about 1 foot deep. It was unbelievable. And it looked like it was on town property, but it wasn't. And that's the kind of the illusion, right, that motorists blame the town for the potholes when they don't realize that that's not really town property. So, but other than that, I hope the supermarket works out. I know the Stop and Shop didn't last very long. That was there years ago. So hopefully this one will have better success. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, David. Josh, is anyone else from the public interested in speaking on behalf of this application?
I don't see anyone at this time.
Okay, if that's the case, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move that we close the public hearing.
Is there a second? Okay, roll call vote. Tori?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Peg,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. So if we can come back and have, Jim, if you don't mind looking at the decision that's in the packet, but if I can get a motion, well, first of all, let's, Mr. Duggan raised the same concern I did around potholes. Is anyone, other members of the board have the same concern? And should there be a condition around pothole maintenance to the satisfaction of the town?
I would echo that concern. My office is on Federal Street, so it looks like Beirut right now, and it's going into the winter, so it's only going to get worse. There's several potholes as you approach the light onto Sylvan Street. There's potholes as you get in front of the 99 and throughout the property. So if it's like that now, it's going to get considerably worse. So I think we should try to get some input from Simon to start the patching now before we get into December. So I'd be fine with the condition, John.
I'd
Other
be fine with
comments
the
on-
condition also.
Okay, Peg.
As would I.
That's what I am.
Okay, Jean, do you have any feedback?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Okay, so can we have a motion with the condition that's been discussed, and then we can bring the decision to the.
Can I add something?
Sure, go
please?
ahead, Mr. Fox. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's, first of all, I just dispute the fact that, our commitment to safety isn't the most important thing. I think that was a little bit out of line. But I would say that if there is a condition, relative to any potholes, I'd like there to be some sort of specificity because it's rather vague. And as I'm sure, the Danvers DPW is aware, these are kind of ongoing kind of whack-a-mole issues that we address on a, annual constant basis. So if there's something in particular, then a spot or a location, then we'd be happy to address it. But leaving it as a vague statement is a little bit open-ended.
No, I understand the concern, so maybe we have our town engineer weigh in on this issue.
I think you take 5 minutes and drive around the Constitution and Independence, and you'll quickly become aware of, and Federal Street, of where they're located. They're everywhere. I mean, come on. We just want to get it addressed. You're trying to drive customers to that mall, but you've got editorials, you've got people on social media, and people don't want to drive down there if they're going to risk damage to their vehicle. You could spend 10 minutes and drive around those ring roads, and you'll very quickly ascertain the problems. I don't think we need to plot them out for you on a map. I mean, I think you could drive there and see them. They're everywhere, and they're going to get worse as it gets colder. So I would amend the motion to say that, there's an assessment by the developer, the Simon Mall, along with, if we need to have the town staff involved to ensure that, the right potholes are filled, or that there's a planned schedule that this work gets done before the snow flies in December. I think that's not an unreasonable goal, because this has been a continuing problem with that site. And we want the site to be successful, as I know you do. So let's make it safe for people driving their vehicles at the site.
Mr. Fox, is the company prepared to make that commitment to work with the town to fix this issue?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so can I have a motion with the amendment? Just to be clear, Jim, maybe you can read that motion for the record. You're on mute, Jim. Jim? You're on mute, Jim. Sorry, Jim, you're on mute. We didn't hear you.
Okay, approval of a major modification to a previously approved site plan, 100 Independence Way, date of application August 5th, 2021. Date of hearing September 14th, 2021. Date of decision September 14th, 2021. The Danvers Planning Board approves the modification submitted for property at 100 Independence Way, assesses map 63 lot 4, shown on the plan set titled Site Plan for Redevelopment of Aldi at Liberty Tree Mall, Danvers, Mass., prepared by R.J. O'Connell and Associates, Inc., dated July 30, 2021, consisting of 17 sheets. This approval is granted with the following waivers. 1, Section 4.8.7 and Section 4.8.8 request to submit a plan sheet showing utilities and grading and drainage on one sheet, sheets combined. 2, Section 4.8.11, no submission of a lighting photometric plan. This approval is subject to the attached list of general conditions. Any approval of this site plan shall lapse within 2 years from the grant thereof, if construction has not begun by such date. This approval is further conditioned upon the applicant and Simon Malls meeting with the town to work toward filling the potholes and maintaining the ring roads and roadways into the mall in a safe manner prior to December 1st, 2021.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, let me do a roll call vote. Peg,
Yes.
Tori,
Yes.
Boo,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. So I wish the applicant and the new tenant all the best.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, the next agenda item is 18 Electronics Avenue, request for site plan approval submitted by DeMarcus Enterprises, Inc. for property at 18 Electronics Avenue, assessors map and lot number 032049, pursuant to section 4 of the zoning bylaw. The property is in the industrial 2 zoning district. The applicant proposes to modify the previously approved plan by reducing the square footage of an addition. So I'll turn it over to the applicant. You can just identify yourself for the board and the public, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mark Noguera. I'm with Design Group Facility Solutions. We're the engineer for Old Neighborhood Foods, located at 18 Electronics Avenue. We were before you just about a year ago with the original site plan approval. That was actually a modification of an original design back in 2015. Let me share my screen here. So on the right, you have the approved plan that we had from last year, where we had a new set of loading docks and a second level of warehouse storage. And then we had this appendage out here was actually 3 levels. It was a basement, which had employee facilities, and then 2 levels of production space. As a result of the last year pandemic and the business needs, Old Neighborhood Foods really came to the conclusion that the additional production space they were planning for in this location was not going to be what they really needed. What they really needed for supply chain and logistics was additional freezer space. So as a result of that change in business philosophy, they're still going to continue. You can see on the left here, the proposed footprint is basically the same, but for a small appendage right here. The difference being this area here is now going to be a single level, which is going to be the same as the first floor. There'll be no basement anymore, and it's going to be a freezer space. As a result of the freezer taking up space in this area here, some of the employee facilities and driver room had to actually get pushed out, and that's been the slight increase in footprint, but the overall square footage has been reduced, obviously, by removing the basement and the second level in this area. So as a result of the modification, I'll just take a quick look at the, so again, I will say, unfortunately, we did find there was a missing almost 1,000 square feet on our first one. We had 139,950. There was just short of 1,000 square feet. One of that was space under the cooling towers that wasn't originally included. And then there was a couple hundred square feet in 2 different areas that were rounded off. So We have corrected the existing conditions as 131,922, but as you can see, our total square footage now is 152 versus 165. And that's primarily, again, the first floor has been adjusted, and that includes the appendage. No change to the basement. Currently, there's a basement there that holds the electrical equipment as well as a refrigeration ammonia engine room. And then the second floor obviously has been reduced. So as far as the details, this area really has not changed, and it's actually, you can see this line here, this is the two-phase construction. So this whole phase, this area here, building is enclosed, site work is complete. In this area, we have not put the sewer connection in yet, but everything in this area is in, and they're currently in the process of finishing out this space for occupancy. As you can see, nothing really has changed in this area other than this grease separator, but I'll show that on the next sheet. So originally we had the grease separator here, and it was taking waste from the production spaces here, plus some of the other production spaces in the building. So that that no longer needs to be there because of the freezer. So as a result, we moved it down, so it's actually now in a straight shot to where the other production spaces are located. We still have our manhole here for the pH and flow metering, same as before. The other thing that changed is we originally had this an 8-inch line coming in. We were going to extend the 8-inch line into the basement, and we were immediately converting that over to a 4-inch. The 4-inch was going to supply the 2 production spaces, and then a small 1.25 inch would supply the employee facilities. Since there are none of those available in this plan, we are just leaving the dead-ended capped off. That water line's been capped off for years, so that's just going to stay as is. And finally, there was a minor change up here, again, related to the under drains. So we had a basement in this. So the under drain was much deeper here. We've adjusted the under drain inverts and brought them into here. So for all intents and purposes, it did require a major site plan approval. I'll just point one other thing out. There's the driver's room here. This stair here, this is actually a second floor egress. So coming out of the second floor of the warehouse, and then we've placed a ramp here. It's not intended. It will meet ADA requirements, but it's not intended to be an ADA ramp. As we're not going to put ADA spaces in this area, given the type of use of the space. But it's really more for access with dollies and carts, etc., for employees being able to enter this side of the building without having to carry things upstairs. So, in a nutshell, that's the information. We did get a letter yesterday from Mr. King, town engineer. We had a nice call with him and Josh this afternoon just to clarify a couple things. I think we are able to answer all of his questions from a plan perspective. A couple of minor sheet changes. We're going to add some scales and a couple of notes to some of the details. Other than that, your stormwater permit that it became effective February 2021. That's something that we reviewed with him, and I took a look at the regulations and the application. I don't see there being any issue with us complying with that and applying for it. We may ask for a couple of waivers that were similar to the original waivers we had requested and were granted, specifically like the stormwater management report, because we ultimately reduced from existing conditions to current conditions. Current proposed conditions are less impervious space on the property. So other than that, I think a couple minor requests for waivers on his permit application. Other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape. The water use mitigation program, we are subject to that. I believe we did not get that accomplished prior to the construction of phase 1, but following this process, we will definitely get that engaged. I think it was just a miss between getting final signed plans and building permits and COVID. So, but we're aware of it. We're prepared to move forward with that fee. And so I think we're in good shape. There's nothing really on his letter that we take exception to.
Great, thanks for the overview. Tori, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I remember the original site plan approval, and we covered a lot of ground there. It sounds like this will involve introducing fewer new workers into the space. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think ultimately, initially, it'll be fewer workers. The future build out, I think eventually when some of the other production spaces that are in future phases inside the building, we'll probably get somewhere near the number. And I got Nick Katzos from Old Neighborhood Foods on. He could potentially clarify, but I believe just the way they're doing business now with COVID, and that essentially they're going to have pretty much at the end of the day the same number of employees as would have been even with the production. Is that correct, Nick?
Yes, that is correct. We hope to have a few less. Obviously, during the pandemic, it taught us that automation is better than people. They attend better. So we'll try to do some repetitive jobs with automation. So, it would be a minor reduction of the original. And, it could be 20 people, it could be 30 or 40 people. It all depends on what products we sell in the future.
This modification doesn't raise any new concerns for me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tori. Gene, I know you're just coming up to speed, but do you have questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Jim?
No, I think it's fine. I mean, it's not often we get reductions, so I'm fine with it. Looks good. Thank you.
Yep. Peg?
I remember when this was first proposed, I don't know how many years ago it was. And one of the things that really interested me was Old Neighborhood's attention toward getting their workers here by bus or, I don't know, jitney. I think you had a number of workers that worked in the Lynn area and you were bringing them up. Are you still planning on, providing public transportation for your workers that come from that area?
So we pay for the bus. It's not public, it's at Old Neighborhood, it's expense. And the only thing we've done is we increased the buses because of COVID, one person per seat.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of putting 40, 45 people on one bus, certain days we have two buses. And the only other thing is we have a bus for the second shift that brings up about 10, 15 employees and brings them, comes up before the first shift gets out, and then it goes back at 11 p.m. at night. So we still plan on keeping those three buses. The one at night is 10 people on a 40-seat bus, 50-seat bus, so it's fine. And I think we'll be all right. I don't think we plan on any more buses, but we will probably keep the two. There's plenty of room on them now. So if we needed to put 20 or 30 more total people, we shouldn't have a problem.
Well, thank you. It's commendable that you're doing that for your workers. I don't have any problems also with this. I remember the last site plan modification that we went through. This is smaller. This seems fine to me.
Okay, great. Lou?
Yeah, and I remember as well the last discussion about this, and I share Peg's compliments as well for in terms of the steps to be able to provide transportation for your employees. One just a question I had. Now it's my understanding that there'll be some additional freezer space on the new plan. Does that affect anything in terms of additional compressors, any sort of additional exterior noise at all?
We actually had 7 refrigeration compressors when we took over the building from Highliner Foods. We currently have 2 operational and 2 brand new ones going in. And we could possibly, and right now we run 2 compressors. They're in the basement. There's venting, obviously, for ammonia in case of a problem, but the noise level is not really going to increase. We may run 3 compressors at a time, but like I said, Highliner Foods they had 7 and they ran 5 during production, sometimes 6. On the weekends, they shut down their spiral freezers. So it should be no noise outside. You can hear it if you're in the parking lot. We haven't had any complaints with neighbors or anything like that, and hope never to. So I don't think it would be a big increase.
Okay. And you said you indicated that you have two new compressors.
Actually, all 4 compressors were bought since we bought the building. We have no old compressors. So the freezer compressor has been running for 4 years. The production compressor's been running for 5 years. I had old ones as spares and they were unreliable. I'm currently without spares, and I hope nothing happens in the next month or 2 before I get the new ones hooked up. So everything is, 6 or 7 years is the oldest, and 2 have not even been started up yet. So,
okay.
And if we did have a 5th, we would never run 5 at a time. You might run 3 on a heavy day. If the freezer required a lot of load, you might run another one half, but one would always be dedicated as a spare. So if we ever ran 3 or 4 on a daily basis, we would add that 5th one, and only at that point.
Okay. Yep. Thanks for the explanation. I have no concerns about this, so I'm in support.
Yeah, and I'm in support too. Obviously, a reduction in the previous approved site plan I'm in favor of. So, but David, Josh, anyone from the public wanting to speak on this application?
I don't see anyone unless Mr. Duggan, oh, actually, it looks like he signed off, so.
Yeah, okay. So hearing no comments from the public, can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing on, is it 10 Electronics Drive?
Yes, 18 electronics.
18.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Lou?
Yes.
Tori?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
And I'm in favor as well. Jim, if I can ask you one more time to read the decision or the motion into the record.
Yes. Approval of a major modification to a previously approved site plan, 18 Electronics Avenue. Date of application, August 5th, 2021. Date of hearing, September 14th, 2021. Date of decision, September 14th, 2021. The Danvers Planning Board approves the modification submitted for property at 18 Electronics Avenue, Assessors Map 32, Lot 49, shown on the plan set entitled Loading Dock Expansion, Danvers, Mass., prepared by Design Group Facility Locations, Inc., dated June 9th, 2020, revised September 10th, 2021, consisting of 13 sheets. This approval is granted subject to the waivers and conditions from the previous site plan approval on July 14th, 2020. This approval is subject to the attached list of general conditions. Any approval of this site plan shall last within 2 years from the grant thereof, if construction has not begun by such date.
Right, okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote again. Tori?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And I'm in favor as well. So we wish the applicant well. Best wishes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So the final item on the agenda tonight is the zoning bylaw changes, a brief overview from staff of proposed zoning amendments for the fall town meeting. This will open the public hearing process as advertised on August 22nd, 2021. The public notice for the proposed amendments can also be found in the office of the town clerk. So David, I'll turn the floor to you.
Sure, thanks very much. I'll just share my screen again if you give me one moment. All right, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so just move along fairly quickly. I don't want to belabor this too much. Tonight's the first night. So just as an outline, I just wanted to go through the timeline of what happened so far, where we are, and then the future dates. I think we've outlined that for you a few times sometimes in memos, but again, it's always good just to throw it out there so everyone's on the same page. I'll go through some of the updates proposed for fall of 2021 briefly, and then we can talk about anything the planning board wishes to talk about. So moving along, we already had consultations with the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Board of Selectmen. So these articles were formally submitted to the Selectmen for referral back to the Planning Board. Tonight, we are opening the public hearings, as you are all aware of. Early October, between October 4th and the 8th, we're likely to go to the Finance Committee to see if they have any early feedback for us on any of these articles. Looking to close the public hearing process in 2 meetings from now, so October 12th. The warrant will close as the Board of Selectmen sees fit, but we're guessing October 19th, and then on to the normal town meeting member workshop and special town meeting, hopefully mid-November. We're hoping that occurs this year. As you know, last year's was canceled, so we have some holdover articles. So for this year, the bylaw changes really fall into 3 different categories. I think this was outlined in the memo you received, but it's really legislative changes or case law changes, some of which actually come from the federal level for FEMA floodplain changes. The second part is chronic problems, abutter issues, and nuisances we're trying to address, so things we frequently get phone calls or emails about or other divisions do. And then board and staff requests, technical corrections, and internal consistency issues. And I can move along from here. So everything on the left-hand side of the screen are holdover articles from fall of 2020. I wasn't going to discuss those tonight. We gave them a pretty good vetting, I think, last year. Obviously, we're opening the hearings on them because we've lapsed on our hearing timeline. However, just for this evening's purposes, I think we have enough to cover, so I was just going to let those lie, but we can pick those up if need be at a future date. We also have 2 general bylaws up for the fall. They don't fall into the normal zoning process, but just wanted to make you aware. The Preservation Commission is looking to change their demolition delay bylaw, and the Conservation Commission needs to update the wetlands bylaw due to feedback from the Attorney General based on October's 2020's town meeting. So everything on the right-hand side of the screen is new for this year. Some of it are larger policy issues, some of it are smaller nuisance issues, as I've stated. But I'll move along to go into the first article that we're going to discuss. So for this one, I wanted to talk about storage containers and outdoor storage. Both of these are frequent nuisance issues that we see quite a bit, particularly the way storage containers are treated on residential properties. So the bylaw has long-term and temporary storage now in terms of how storage containers are housed. But on residential properties, for the most part, it says you can have 2 storage containers on a residential premises without a time limit to them. So we just wanted to clarify going forward the size of the containers, what type. So we're looking more for traditional pods or pack rats or those U-Haul containers that people frequently use to move or house things during construction, as opposed to what you're seeing here, which is really a cargo container or a shipping container. So we've updated the performance standards for that, and then we've also instituted temporary and long-term just within the residential component of this. So really it would be, you can have a storage container on your residential property, wherever you want to place it. For the most part, you can find it for 2 months. And then after that, you would need relief going forward. And you can keep it for longer. It was just limiting it to what you can do by right and what you can do with a discretionary permit. So there's no moratorium on them. There's no freeze on them. It's really just trying to address some of these nuisance issues that we have. We've also added a carve out in there for active construction sites. So if you have a building permit in good standing, and you're using the shipping container to house things while you're doing an addition, we obviously don't want to penalize any homeowners for that. So that's a carve out that we added for active construction. Moving along to outdoor storage, this was a similar issue in that currently the bylaw defines it, as you see at the top of your screen. It's called outdoor storage / displays / sales. So it's kind of all one package and one flavor, and we'd like to break it up into 3 distinct separate things. So the picture on the screen right now is long-term PVC pipe storage. what we would classify this going forward as outdoor storage. So these are things that a retail customer is not going to go over to. This is storage that, when things move in a retail establishment, they can go out and load out of this outdoor storage area, but it's not going to be open to the public and it wouldn't be accessible, which is differing from what we'd like to term outdoor display. And this is kind of a classic example of a seasonal outdoor display. So this differs from either storage or sales in our proposed change, in that when you go to a store, you wouldn't be necessarily purchasing this snowblower. It's a display to say, we do sell snowblowers. Please come inside, talk to a sales associate. We can help you out. And then the final flavor would be outdoor sales. And this could be anything from hanging baskets outside where you literally walk by, pick up the plant and purchase it, or things like pool noodles or other seasonal items that are constantly being restocked and resupplied. It could be because customers are actually purchasing those particular items. Any questions on that? Or Mr. Chair, did you want me just to run through the whole thing and then take questions?
Yeah, why don't you go through the whole thing? I do have a question, but why don't you finish your presentation, David?
Sure. Okay, can do. The next item we wanted to cover was dwelling unit conversions and then multifamily allowances, but these are specifically as they relate to the residential 1, 2, and 3, or your single family zoning districts. If you recall from last year, it was some point during the beginning of COVID, but I believe it was June or July of 2020, we had a land use summit, and I think Mr. Henry put up this slide indicating that for a conventional build out, there's a number of properties left that could be potentially subdivided. Doesn't mean they all will be, and it doesn't mean that some of them aren't encumbered with other wetlands or easements limiting further development. But I think the point being is that most folks think of the town as pretty well built out, and we're not saying that it's not, but there are developable tracts out there. So this would be adding new units onto the rolls without a denominator for the subsidized housing inventory. All of that's completely okay. It's what it's zoned for. It's what the town has been asking for basically since they transitioned from agricultural zoning to residential 1, 2, and 3. But we wanted to alert you to that, to then transition into the R1, 2, and 3 districts as they exist today. So currently we offer a number of flavors or a few different ways to allow single family lots to add additional units onto them. So basically transitioning single families to either 2 families or multi-families. Again, in and of itself, it's perfectly fine, but we're trying to point out that with the 500 potentially additional units coming along for subdivisions, we already have over 800 additional units on single family lots today. So things that would normally be a single family home, but they just happen to have additional units on them. They didn't all come about through these mechanisms, through either conversions or multifamily, but just wanted to make you aware, particularly as it relates to the subsidized housing inventory, because most of these do not have inclusionary offsets. So that being said, I did a map here based on that analysis, and I overlaid the multifamily zones, which you'll see in light blue, and then everything that's not residential 1, 2, and 3 in the kind of darker tan color. Just essentially showing you of R1, 2, and 3, what's already being utilized as multifamily and what's not. So really the point was the articles would be proposing to eliminate these types of uses in the R1, 2, and 3 zone, given that we have zones specifically geared towards those, and there's other mechanisms that you could choose to do multifamily. Again, that being said, these properties and these uses will most likely exist forever. I don't think there's anybody that would choose to tear down a 4-family and make it a single family. I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't begrudge anyone if they never did either. But so these are out there. They exist. We were just simply saying perhaps it's time to reel in some of the scattershot development, as we had mentioned during the land use summit and during the previous zoning in February 2020. If you'll remember, we're poised to potentially add 600 units of housing downtown. So coupling that with everything else that's currently allowed in the bylaw, we're looking at a significant increase to the denominator for housing on the subsidized housing inventory. In addition, a number of new units in town. So I think, as we said last year too, we're looking to create less scattershot all over the town and kind of focus in these targeted areas where we've either done a study or we're gearing up for an additional study similar to the Endicott corridor, which is really the area in and around the Liberty Tree Mall. That's kind of the next focus area for us to look at based on some comments from this board, the select board, and residents in the community. So I'll just move along. Next up was EFLAs and then planned developments. So EFLAs, as you probably know, we have a new building commissioner, and between he and I, we've been trying to parse the EFLAs that are coming forward to either the zoning board or through his office. And the difficulty has been really, how do we measure these things? So I think, everybody's in agreement. We like EFLAs, they're perfectly fine, and we're not proposing to change anything on a policy level to do with EFLAs. There'll still be a 25 limit cap per year. It would still need to be a family member or blood relation. It was really just defining when somebody applies, how do we tell when it's a by right EFLA and it goes to the building commissioner, or when it has to go for permit relief? So really the limit right now is 750 square feet, but the current bylaw doesn't say 750 square feet of what. So we're just trying to institute, does that include common area shared with the primary residence owner? Does that include, stairwells? Is it mudrooms? What is it? Is it potentially habitable space that's not currently finished, like a half story above the EFLA? So really we just wanted to define that a little bit better. So I think Jim, this is the new building commissioner, Jim Butler, more expeditiously process the EFLA permits and get them through. There was a few design considerations that we broke out, interior floor plans versus exterior appearance and what things should look like based on the outside. And then really policy to regulation, meaning things that the zoning board frequently asks for almost 99% of the time, but it's not included in the bylaw. So we'll get applicants, we can coach them as much as we can, but if the bylaw doesn't ask them specifically for a certain thing that they need to provide to the board that they always ask for, we just wanted to codify that to say, okay, we know they're going to ask you for it. Let's just get that out of the way so we can kind of move these things along. That was pretty much it for EFLAs. Not a whole heck of a lot happening there. I think the next thing to talk about, and one of the last things, is use variances / plan developments. So we're trying to pair these two things together, and I'll explain why in a second. But currently, Mass General Law essentially does not allow use variances to be issued unless a zoning bylaw has previously allowed them or allows them currently. So there was a sunset date in that in about 1976. Danvers does still have that. But as you can see from the next slide, we're one of a few communities. I've heard anecdotally less than 10%, but I went through about 120 zoning bylaws over the last few weeks and months, and I could only find the ones on the left-hand side of the screen that actually are allowing use variances. Conversely, there's other communities that do allow planned developments. So we're trying to think of a way that, if we get rid of something that is honestly kind of a difficult permitting mechanism, we'd like to offer something else to the development community that might be a bit easier and a bit more straightforward. We were thinking that's sort of a planned development approach. And what that would allow is, for a property owner to come in and do a long-term plan. You could respond to short-term needs, but it would also be a long-term plan to really redevelop a whole site or a whole area. Right now I have I'll say a far-fetched and futuristic map of the entire Endicott corridor. There are obviously multiple property owners here, but it would allow you to take an entire site and say, we want different types of uses in different locations, perhaps different building heights, different densities, different parking ratios, all of which would need to be vetted, of course, but it would really allow you to do a cohesive and comprehensive plan. And that would really help a developer kind of go forward without constantly have to come back to a permitting board all the time. You may be aware, but perhaps not, we've had, I think, two developments that came forward for, they would have had to hit every single one of our permitting boards, and they were in the wash for, I'm going to say 18 to 24 months, both of which culminated in, they didn't result in a project at the end of the day. So what we're proposing is really, it's a 135-day track that would culminate with a vote at town meeting, but it's really get you in, tell us what your plan is, and kind of move along. Again, we want it well thought out, but we also want it in an expeditious fashion for the development community. Two of the last things were the Affordable Housing Trust asked us to look at the multifamily affordability provision, which is what it's now called in the zoning bylaw. It's in section 30. we'd like to retitle that to inclusionary housing. And really what we're attempting to do is track what was voted in that town meeting last February 2020 for the downtown, and just make the two affordability provisions track as one, so it would all be cohesive. So it wouldn't really matter what section of town you were developing in, you wouldn't have a different affordable housing bylaw to apply to. Additionally, there's the trust feels that there are a few loopholes in that bylaw where it only applies to projects that need to go to the planning board for a special permit, one, and then projects over a certain number of units, and then it's broken out on cost based on the number of units you do. So they wanted to tighten that up a little bit. Our model kind of offers, it's not necessarily a payment in lieu, but you don't need to start adding additional units right off the bat. There's a monetary inclusion until you get to some larger projects. It's really more or less a 10% addition to the housing rules for the numerator or on the SHI. For smaller projects, 12.5% for larger projects, but the truly really small projects generally only have to pay a monetary cost to the Affordable Housing Trust. I think that's it for my piece. I'll turn it over. Aaron Henry, I believe, is here. He wanted to discuss civic space and zoning district boundaries.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Hey, Aaron.
Hi. Thank you, David. If we haven't bored you to death yet, the next few slides will finish you off. So we started talking about the concept of civic space zoning last year. It was generally well received, and it's actually a pretty data intensive project. We've had to do a lot of parcel level analysis and review. So we had a lot of homework to do from the conversations and feedback we got last year. We've advanced the proposal quite a bit from there. And I think, again, we want to have a conversation about whether or not this proposal is ready to move forward this fall. But to go back over it, and again, so this is a holdover article. I think this is probably the only one we're intending to dive into a little bit from last year, but that's, again, because we've made some advancements in the proposal and some sharpening of the pencils here. But basically, I would remind us all that the zoning map is the community's future land use or future build out map, right? Eventually, all property owners will exercise the rights we give them, and you end up with on the ground what you have shown on the zoning map. And so as I move forward, that's kind of part of this concept. The other piece of this that really in the last year has come to light, and which was not expected when we started down this road, was that this exercise started to identify several issues with the current zoning bylaw boundaries. This town, and it was from kind of a historical vestige when farmers' fields weren't necessarily all lotted out. So we might say, well, we want this zoning district to be 125 feet off of the road. Unfortunately, over time, that zoning lot those lots along that line may actually be 150 feet deep or 175 feet deep. And today you end up with that zoning district line running through backyards, or there's lots of issues with the current zoning boundaries, and this exercise getting down to that level started to identify some issues. So sidebar to the principal task of identifying the types of parcels that should be in a civic zone, we also started identifying areas on the map where we need to make some corrections. And generally speaking, we're trying to move 100% a lot into one district or another, and try to avoid split zones where possible. And again, there are instances when you're going to want a split zone, and we should continue to use that practice where we find it necessary. But generally speaking, I think many of the issues that we identified, it's far simpler and fairer to all involved to simply say, this is a single family lot and we're going to move it into a single family district, or this lot is overwhelmingly commercial and we're going to move it into the commercial district because it really is a better way to treat it. So that was kind of a sidebar and something that we really had to look at over the last year. So David, if you can jump ahead, I apologize. I don't have control of the PowerPoint. So here's the existing zoning map. And I do apologize because I'm going to show you another map in a second. The colors aren't exactly the same because David built this one and I built the other one. And unfortunately, I didn't use exactly the same colors as him. So I apologize for that. And we'll try to make that correction going forward. But basically what this map shows you is there's not a single square foot of property in the town of Danvers today that should be zoned for open space, for schools, for civic institutions, all of which contribute a great deal of civic character in this town. Ultimately, here, the high school, it shouldn't be a high school, it should be R2. The Smith School, we just did a beautiful renovation of the Smith School, not even a renovation, a whole new rebuild of Smith School. Actually, we've zoned that R3. And so I think, again, knowing the town as well as I do, it's really not how most people you interact with around town would think of it, right? Plains Park, just across the street from Mr. George and myself, pretty sure that the town would more or less want that to be a park forever. And so this proposal tries to identify those parcels and put them in an appropriate zoning district that respects their current use and what I think would be their long-term use. So if we can flip ahead one slide. So again, here it's again, it color kind of washes out, but again, you'll see, like, if you look up at the reservoir, that kind of like light green. There's also, if you look around the airport area in the top right of the map, you'll see more of a tan color. Those are the areas where, that's the airport land. There's very little chance of that land ever coming out of the airport. There's very little chance the reservoir coming out. And this identifies all the school sites, the cemeteries, number of parcels around town that for the most part are going to be locked in. Now, some people have said, oh, why are we guarding against, or why are we changing the status? What's the worst that could happen? I will say, through personal experience, professionally, I was the town planner in the town of Milton about 15 to 18 years ago. Archdiocese of Boston owned 3 churches totaling about 14 acres in town, and due to some external problems the church was having, closed 3 churches in Milton and put them on the open market. And because the town had really never anticipated such a disposition by such an institution in town, found themselves facing, I think ultimately we got about a 10-lot subdivision. There was a 40B that got on one of the properties, was closer to a commercial corridor, that went to a 40B. And I can't remember what happened on that third site, but it was ultimately developed privately. And again, those opportunities, I'm not saying that those weren't appropriate uses for those sites if they weren't going to be what they were for the prior generation. But this proposal would at least put them in a zoning district that would require such property owners to come to town meeting and say, we want to do something different with the property. The property will no longer benefit from the Dover Amendment uses that Mass General Law Chapter 40A allows us. So again, the town can do whatever it wants on its properties as long as it's the landowner. As soon as we dispose of that property, it goes to a private partner. They lose that protection and they got to conform to zoning. So again, there's a little bit of defense in this proposal, in that we want to make sure that these properties that contribute to the civic character of the community kind of remain that way. And if they want to evolve outside of that channel that they're in, that there's a defense mechanism for the town to have a discussion about what's an appropriate next use for those sites. If that never happens, that's great too, because again, what we're showing on the map now is that these properties contribute to the town through open space, through institutions, and the civic spaces that they provide us, and that the community has largely been built around. I think, David, is there one more slide associated with this one?
Doesn't look like it.
So again, I think in general, we're kind of flying through a lot of these, and happy to double back on whatever. I'll make David answer all of those questions, but happy to take whatever, but I know we just threw a lot at you.
Yeah, all right. So as we did, so how much, going back to the timeline, David and
Yep.
Aaron, how many more meetings of the planning board are we going to have before a formal vote needs to be taking place to move it on to, I guess, the finance committee or the selectmen? What do we have,
Yeah.
3 meetings?
We would have 3 meetings with the planning board. However, I'll put the timeline back up. I wanted to run it by this board as well. Last year we did 3 nights and they were pretty full nights, I recall. And I think by the time we got to the close of the 3rd night, everyone was pretty much done with hearing me talk at them. So my thought would be we can open them tonight, just keep them open, and at the next meeting on the 28th, if anybody wants to bring anything up, or we can discuss as much as you want, but I wasn't going to put a formal presentation together or a hold. And then October 12th, we were looking to close. Again, anything that needs to be addressed that night can be. We also have at least one citizen's petition that we'd like to discuss and give the applicant the floor on the 12th of October. So technically 3 with us, but in between that, we would be looking to go to the finance committee. So we can give this board the feedback we got from the finance committee if anything changes with any of the articles.
And I think in addition to that, as we said in the memo, and we've said this to the select board, to the FinCom, anybody involved, we are happy to discuss any one of these proposals in depth with you at any point, provided we can make it. But again, we're happy to do it. This forum is sometimes really difficult to ask what we've noticed. Someone may be embarrassed to ask us a question. Happy to deal with that offline. Whatever you need us to do, we're happy to do, because we want to make sure that this work goes smoothly and that we get all the feedback we can from all the boards involved by the time we close our public hearings, because after that it becomes a motion on the floor. It can get sloppy. And again, I don't think any of these are over the top complicated, but we have last year's volume we want to get through, plus the work that we were doing anyway. So it feels like there's a lot on this year's slate. And so we want to make sure that you all have the time to give us the feedback on them.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, just so, Tori, were you involved in this last year in Lou? I'm trying to remember the timing. I mean, a lot's
Yeah.
happened since.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember we talked about a lot of these things, and then a number of them got derailed with the special town meeting.
Right, all right. So other than Gene being brand new, the remaining members have seen last year's stuff. So my suggestion would be that we try to move through last year's stuff, for the benefit of the public. We've got new town meeting members, right? We're going to be really voting on this. So our audience is some of the new members that might be new. But to go through last year's fairly quickly, because I think we did a lot of work around that, and then really dive into the new requests. Some of them I think should be fairly straightforward. I mean, I had just one basic question,
Sure.
On the storage one. I mean, I understand what we're trying to do, but for example, I like the carve out on active construction. I think that makes a lot of sense. But how did we come up with 60 days for the rest? And it seems tight, if it's a supply chain issue, someone's moving, I don't know. How did 60 days get picked?
60 days was just for the residential homeowner. I have the research. A colleague of mine in the office did most of the work on that one. I'll have to check with her. I can get back to you. I do know that building permits do need to be pulled for those. How often they get pulled for the very short term ones, couldn't really say, / is anyone's guess, but the building commission has the ability to issue a building permit for 6 months for one of these. So we can certainly change that. I don't think there was a hard and fast rule why that was picked, but I can double check. And just so you're aware, that's just for residential ones. Commercial or industrial sites, there was not that same limit.
And, obviously we've seen a lot of self-storage being built in the community, right? So it's just, I think the concept in the conversation makes a lot of sense. So to the other board members, does it seem like we could plow through pretty quickly last year's and then make sure that we spend the appropriate time on the new request? Yeah, Aaron, I'll be honest with you, your map, you're right, there's a lot of data there. But I can see some sensitivity too, around certain things that are being isolated, right?
Yeah. What we tried to do there was, there are certain properties that are, if were small and in a neighborhood, maybe leave the zoning alone. But if they were larger and seemed like maybe had some subdivided, I can't speak.
Subdivisibility.
There you go. Thank you, David. That they might be a candidate for this treatment. Now, that said, I think in that link that we provided you, the map in the link is a 24 by 36, and you can zoom way in and see parcel lines. So again, we'd love to get to that level at some point. And I was just going to ask a question. I don't want to put David on the spot, but the next planning board meeting is the 28th of September. Was that,
Yes.
I hear John asking about a chance to go through everything. Would that be an evening that the planning board may be able, if they wish, to go into that level of detail, or what was your plan?
We can do that. It's pretty light that night for development. So yeah.
I just didn't know if that's what John was alluding to, but
yeah, it was, so that's that was one of my questions, David. What's the agenda and other stuff? I mean, if we have a clean slate and we can spend a lot of quality time, and hopefully we'll get a lot of feedback from the public along the way.
Sure.
Is there any way to control some of that? I mean, then in the October meeting, what does that look like? Do you have a sense of what we might be seeing in early October?
So yeah, that's pretty light. Again, I mean, unless we get swamped with a whole bunch of A&Rs, which, not saying it couldn't happen, but I don't think it's going to.
Yeah, and those are fairly straightforward.
Yeah, yeah, we're pretty light through October.
So I'll bring it back to the board. I mean, mechanically, how would you guys like to see this discussed? Peg, I mean, you've been through this. Jim, you're the veterans of all of this. I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job when we have zoning changes to make sure that it gets hashed out. So when it gets to the town meeting floor, it's pretty well vetted. That's the objective, at least.
Well, I think we do need to go over last year's, what we discussed last year. I think we should go through that again. We could probably do it fairly quickly. If I remember correctly, we had questions, but they weren't, that detailed. And I think Josh and David answered them, answered mostly, so we could go through those. So we're going to advertise for the public to discuss these zoning changes when?
So the ad's open. Technically, the opening day is tonight. But again, what we did last year, we did 3 nights. The first night was similar to tonight. It was, we're going to throw a whole bunch at you. You kind of just got the material.
Yeah.
Come back to us with some questions. We'll vet it some more, and then we'll have another night again to pretty much vet it again and work out any final kinks. But the difference this year is we're going to try to hit all the other boards before we come back to you for the third time, just so you can get their feedback as well.
Yeah.
The FinCom, you mean the FinCom and the ZBA
and the select board as well.
The select board, okay.
I think last year, one of the, I'll say a slight frustration David and I have had with the process here is, technically state law says the recommendation on the zoning article comes from the planning board to town meeting. But Danvers, the select board and the FinCom get it after the planning board. And last year this happened, I think, with the affordable housing provision that we were dealing with the character-based zoning districts, where something came up at the FinCom and they wanted a minor tweak. And it ended up kind of the planning board having already closed its public hearing on the article, voting favorably, and then us having to amend. We obviously never I think that one did get through. That might have gone to the first one, and I may even be a year ahead of myself. But it just kind of created a little bit of a wrinkle at the 11th hour, not because of the substance of the motion, but just because of the procedure that we lay out. We have to follow a very prescriptive track laid out by the Attorney General's office, and it kind of threw a little monkey wrench in it late in the game. And it was a worthy comment. We just are trying to encourage those boards to get us those comments earlier than typical, so that when we go and see the warrant closed at the select board level and the FinCom recommendations come out, they've already had a chance to ask their hard questions, and what they're seeing is kind of the consensus documents, so that we can avoid that sort of situation from happening again.
So what we had to do, if I remember correctly, is we had to hold a planning board meeting prior to town meeting, but after the FinCom amended that warrant, so we all met at the high school and did that. Yeah, I think it's a good idea for them to see it. Lou's been waving at us. I don't know if anybody noticed.
Go ahead, Lou.
I know. I tried the raise my hand thing. So
yeah, it worked.
It did. There we go. Just a question, I guess, in terms of just sort of mechanics as well, and I appreciate the presentation today, but I guess in terms of, I assume in the near term we'll also get access to the red line as well, in terms of so that we can actually see the sort of the chapter and verse.
Yes, you should have received it in the memo. There's a link there, and then there's a shared folder. But if that didn't come through, I
don't know if I got
apologize.
that.
No.
I didn't see it.
No, I didn't get that.
Okay, that's something must have happened on our end. We'll give that another whirl. That makes a lot more sense tonight. We were under the assumption that you've had it for a few weeks. That's okay. We'll get that to you.
Was it on the share? Was it on the share drive?
Yeah, we tried to set up a separate. Yeah, we think it is. We tried to set up a separate folder so it didn't get muddied with the development stuff. But we'll have to contact our IT division.
And again, that's a document that we gave the same exact memo, same exact packet to all the boards and town council and the moderator, just so that everybody had access to it. So we'll double back with that. But in theory, everyone's working off of, I think it was a folder dated August 24th or August 28th. I can't remember which August date it was.
I'll do a double check. Thank you.
It was August 26th.
I picked neither of those dates.
Okay.
Jim, what's your feeling? I mean, a lot of ground to cover here before the town meeting, but I think it can be accomplished, obviously. So I just want to make sure it's effective and that we're properly advertising what we're going to, as best as we can, what we're going to talk about that particular night, David. That's going to be the trick, right?
Sure.
Yeah, if we don't have a lot on the agenda, otherwise, I think that gives us enough time to go over it and then invite the town meeting members to attend, so we don't have to go over it 6 times, because we've been through them all, and we'll go over it and get the questions out, kind of dedicate the next meeting or two to that vein, if we can.
Okay. Tori, Jean, you guys have any feedback, how you like to see this unfold?
I think these ideas that have been floated sound really good. We go through this as time is available, and obviously focus on the newer stuff a little bit, but revisit everything.
Okay. Jean, you comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that makes sense, David. And I guess when we do the presentation, we'll stop, right? We'll ask questions. Tonight was a big overview, so we could get it all out there. But I think as we hit the various sections, it makes sense to have a conversation. And I did like, the pictures tell a good story, right, of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, lots of pictures.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other matters? Mr. Duggan, you have any comments from the board, the select board?
In terms of the
process.
The calendar?
Yeah.
Oh, looks like there's a lot of time there, but it's not, because it may be kind of a recursive process if you have to go backwards, as you mentioned. But it's important, there are important topics to cover,
Yeah.
because there is gray area. I think David alluded to that things like the EFLA can cause confusion, not just for the applicants and the building inspector, but for the ZBA, if there's any type of relief that's being requested. So I think the bylaws are just, by their very nature, kind of living items that need to be continually looked at and tweaked. So I wish you the best.
All right, was anyone else, Josh, that wanted to weigh in on the start of this process from the public, that any questions that came from Nancy? Attorney McKeon, I see that you raised your hand there. I love that little.
It's kind of fun. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. I just want to be clear on what this process is going to be, because it sounds like the board members haven't gotten the specific bylaws sections, the red lines. I got them off of the link that was provided to me by planning staff, and I appreciate that. I had some questions specifically about the EFLA changes that I wanted to be able to ask, and I think asking them tonight doesn't make sense, because you should certainly look at it first. Probably makes more sense. And then I just wanted to understand the process of this plan development that is taking the place of use variances, it sounds like, and going through all that process, which sounds like it ultimately will, at the end of the day, require developers to go through a town meeting process. And again, I've looked at it briefly, but I just want to understand that. So so is that going to occur at which of the upcoming meetings? It would be on the 28th or on the 12th of October? And at that time, will we have the opportunity to see the language and really look at it and digest it at that time, rather than summaries, but really see what the language is going to be, so we can ask any questions?
Yeah, I think as the board was alluding to, we have time at the next two meetings to dive in. I know actually you have an applicant for a citizen's petition on October. We are potentially expecting another one of those, so we'd like to allocate as much time as they need on that evening. With respect to the plan development specific question, I owe a memorandum to Mr. Daniel Bennett of the Select Board and the entire Select Board on exactly how that process is going to work, which I can share with all of the rest of the boards, FinCom and Attorney McCann.
That would be great. Thank you.
But in terms of the remainder of the process, on the 28th and the 12th, we should be able to dive in. I think actually Nancy will see you on the 28th as well for a project, so you'll be there anyway.
I'll be there. Where else would I be?
And Attorney McCann, as a power user, you don't have to wait for a board meeting to forward us questions. So, if you have something and you want it clarified, feel free to shoot us an email.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, that sounds good. So David, maybe what I can suggest for the agenda, right? If you can at least maybe bullet point key areas that we want to try to accomplish, right? So when the agenda gets published, public can see that, and it will help set the roadmap for the discussion. Obviously, if we spend more time on one particular topic, we will. Sure. Right, but at least if we set out expectations of what we want to definitely cover that night, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely, can do. And it looked like Lou had his hand up as well.
Good, Lou.
Yep, just a quick note, just for David and Aaron's benefit as well. I did take a look. I did receive the email and the link. It was lost in my email while I was away on vacation. So I have some. I believe I have it, and so I have some homework to do.
Okay, we'll resend it again.
You took a vacation? I mean, come on.
Who took a 17-day extensive vacation?
I did.
I know, amazing.
Yep.
And you all know that right now, as of now, I don't know what's gonna happen. But as of now, we're supposed to be going to Europe October 9th and coming back on the 20th. As of now. So,
Is there like a global pandemic going on or something like that that
yeah,
might
there's
affect
something
your?
like that.
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
They're
Yeah.
all assuring us that it will be safe. Well, I'm not so sure it's safe for me, but right now they're saying, come on, we're going. So,
Peg, and to that point, I do have on the calendar in our office that you potentially are out the 12th. So I'll get you, well, I'll get everybody the material ASAP.
yes,
But
and I
if,
can get you, I'll email you questions and,
yeah, and if you, as Aaron alluded to, we can do a Teams meeting too, just you and I, if you want to
Okay.
walk through anything. That's absolutely
that's
possible.
great, thank you.
No problem.
All right, it sounds like a plan. Is there anything else that we want to address this evening? As a board,
Staff is good.
any of the members have anything they want to raise?
No, I just can't figure out why my computer didn't work. It always does.
Well, you made it, so.
Well, I made it on my laptops. I had to download the app and go through all that, and that's how I got on, but I wish I had more technical knowledge.
You're doing okay. Doing okay. All right. Hearing no new business, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the September 14th meeting.
Second. Aye.
Okay, I agree. All right, stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Yeah.